Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the next lecture in our DuttonLearn series. This is a information session that is sponsored by the John A. Dutton Institute for Teaching and Learning Excellence. If you'd like to stay connected with us, you can do so through our Teams channel. You can see the link that's right there, and I'll go ahead and post those in the chat window after we get started. And also, we're interested in hearing from you. What is it that you want to learn about in these Dutton Learn sessions? So if you have a thought or an idea or something that you would like us to explore, go ahead and fill that survey in, and we'll go ahead and we'll work on that, and we'll advertise these sessions in our Teams channel. So that's another great reason for staying connected with us. Now, today's speaker is April Millay. April has approximately 30 years of experience in higher education here at Penn State, and she works in the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences as a learning designer. And she primarily focuses on partnering with faculty to develop and design courses for the Earth and Mineral Science students. She has a great deal of expertise and experience in faculty development, as well as education technology and designing and developing residential, hybrid, and online courses. So welcome, April, and I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to you.
Okay, thank you, Megan. So today's session is called Strategies for Teaching More Students with Fewer Resources. And so before we actually talk about some of those actual ideas for doing that, I wanted to talk a little bit about our process. So faculty around the university have been asked to do more with less. Everybody's being asked to do more with less. This is the first part of a three-part series on the strategies. And I would like to talk a little bit about our process for what we do to actually figure out if we can help a faculty member be more effective or efficient with some of their assessments. And so this presentation will focus predominantly on saving time and effort through assessments. And so if I was assigned a course and told that the enrollment was going to double or that the faculty might lose a TA or grader, as a learning designer, I'd take a look at the course with the instructor. I'd look at the assessments, review them, see if anything was kind of obvious that we could help out there. Then I'd take a look at the learning objectives, and probably those two things would be done kind of simultaneously. I might actually look at the learning objectives first and then look at the assessments. And then I'm a big fan of Bloom's because I think it's approachable, it's easy to use. So I would probably compare those learning objectives to Bloom's and see where we could try to figure out different ways to assess the same learning objectives, maybe using a different type of assessment. And then once all of that was done, I'd probably then make some recommendations about where we could probably try to save some time. And I've done this with several faculty members over the years. So a lot of you have probably seen this or some format of this. I thought this one was a nice one to pull in. It's a Creative Commons one from Wikimedia, but this is Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives. And what it does is it classifies learning into 6 cognitive levels, ranging from a lower order down here with remember and all the way up to create for the higher order thinking or learning skills. Each level requires different types of assessments to evaluate them to make sure that students are reaching mastery for whatever particular skill they're supposed to be able to do. And so the nice thing about this is each one of these is paired with a statement. So remember is recall facts and basic concepts, and then there's some sample verbs to help get to that. And so it just goes all the way up, explain ideas, use the information, draw connections among the ideas that you just applied. justify a stand or decision, and then produce a new or original work. And some classes have all of these in them. Some classes really kind of focus on the remember and understand. Other ones are more apply and analyze. It all depends on what the course is, and what you're asking your students to do, or what the university is asking them to do to be able to get credit for that particular course. For this session, I put together this little table that just kind of lays it out in a different way. And so these are the same levels that were on the last slide, and some of the skills, verbs, and then some assessment types that actually go along with the different levels, and then some options. And so the options are the things that we're going to talk about in this series of sessions that we're going to be doing as part of DuttonLearn. And so, so each of these 3 sessions are going to be part of this series, and we'll focus on a different category of strategies. So today's session is going to be on the pedagogical strategies. Then we're going to have one on some Canvas strategies, and then one on some technological strategies that aren't necessarily part of Canvas, or you might be able to do something in Canvas and also use a different tool to do it. And so hopefully we'll have an announcement about the dates of those sessions coming soon. Okay, so part 1 are pedagogical strategies. There are numerous pedagogical strategies that can be used to streamline grading for large enrollment classes, which save faculty a lot of time and a lot of effort. So these strategies allow instructors to maintain their high quality experiences for their students while managing their own workload more efficiently. So in this session, we're going to focus on the 5 that are listed here: incorporating rubrics, scaffolding assignments, using collaborative learning, adding formative assessments, and then diversifying grading methods. And so we're going to be working through all 5 of those. And after I talk about each one, if you have any questions, post it in the chat, and Megan can make sure that we are handling all of those questions. Okay, so the first one, incorporating grading rubrics. Rubrics are one of my favorite things. I try to talk about them all the time. And so rubrics work well for subjective assignments like essays, discussions, term papers, lab reports, capstones, presentations, basically anything that you have to look at where there's not like a clear right or wrong answer. Those are great places that grading rubrics can be used. For students, it really helps the students to focus on the important aspects of the assignment. And it just makes them kind of be on the same, know what they're supposed to do to be able to get the points that they need to pass that particular assignment, whatever it is. And for faculty, the use of grading rubrics not only makes grading more consistent, because they're using the same rubric for all of the students, it also helps speed things up, because there is a tool in Canvas that allows faculty members to be able to use rubrics really quickly. It's literally like a click, 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 calculates the score, and then you're done with, add some feedback and you're done. So it really does speed things up instead of writing a lot of handwritten feedback for each student, which leads me to the next idea, which is pre-write common feedback comments for each assignment based on the rubric. So anybody that's graded anything knows that you give the same feedback a lot for particular things. And so this idea just has the faculty member write down a lot of those different pieces of feedback, and then they can literally just copy and paste it. And then for something that is unique about that student, they still have the ability to add something, different for that. But at least for the stuff that's commonly used, they can create something for their own use. Canvas has a tool that allows faculty members to create rubrics very easily for assignments and discussions. And it also has something called Speed Grader, which is another Canvas tool. And it has a feature to actually create a customized comment bank. And so you can add all of your comments into that bank, and then you can just use them over and over and over again. And so in the next session, I will talk about both features in the next session of this series. Our next idea is to scaffold assignments. And so scaffolding in teaching refers to a method where instructors provide successive levels of temporary support to help students achieve deeper understanding and greater independence in the learning process. And so there are several different ways that you could scaffold learning. The one that I've picked for this session is streamlining, that what will help you streamline grading is to break large assignments into smaller parts. So what you would have in your lesson would be milestone assignments. And so that way students could really just focus on that one particular assignment instead of having to focus at the entire thing. And then students are given feedback as they go along within each of the assignments. And then the faculty member doesn't have to provide quite as much feedback. And then at the end, the faculty member doesn't have this large assignment at the end of the semester that they have to grade with all of their students. It's much more manageable for them at the end of the semester. And I added creating weekly assignments here as well. So what this ideally will do through adding very brief assignments, it will keep students on track. So then you might not get as many emails that need responses. So if your students are being kept on track, they're not going to be contacting you for extensions on things and those sorts of things, as they've got these little kind of benchmarks that they're just going to kind of keep up with. And then they just kind of get into a rhythm. So you're actually, in a way, you're scaffolding time management for your students, where you're helping them to kind of learn to turn in those assignments when they're supposed to. And they shouldn't add any work for the faculty member, because they can be like a turned it in or didn't turn it in. So they either get the points or they don't. It could be something that's very simple and auto graded. And so those are the two ideas around scaffolding. And so on the face of it, you might say, but that's more assignments for the faculty member to grade. And that's true, but they're going to be very short assignments. And if you add the rubric to them, it should go pretty quickly. And in the end, the students are going to be learning more, and the faculty member is going to be grading much better assignments there at the end. And it should be a much smaller assignment that they have to do at the end, instead of having, 230-page papers to grade in a week at the end of the semester. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that? I know that one's kind of like on the face of it, it doesn't look like it would streamline grading or help faculty members to kind of save any time.
I think it's the pairing with the rubrics that is a really nice approach, and that's I think where the strength of that where that lies.
Mhm. Like I said, I'm a big fan of rubrics.
I know, me
Um,
too. They're a great tool.
yeah, okay, so if there aren't any questions about that one, I'll go ahead and move on. Okay, So this one is much more obvious. So using collaborative learning. So collaborative learning is an educational approach which students work together in either small groups or teams to complete group projects. So ideally, the focus here is on active learning through cooperation, discussion, and shared responsibility. Um, and pedagogically, this helps students with develop their critical thinking skills, communication skills, teamwork skills, all those kinds of skills that they're going to need once they're out in the world and having jobs and lives. And all at the same time, it's helping students gain a deeper understanding of the subject matter through that process. For faculty, the group projects reduce the number of submissions that they have to grade. So instead of grading, if you've got, we'll just start with a smaller number. If you've got 30 students and you put them in 5-person teams, you're grading 6 projects instead of 30. And then if you pair group assessments with peer grading of group work, it further reduces that, because what this does, it allows the faculty member to really just focus on what the group produces as a whole versus having to grade individual students. So these two kind of work very nicely together. And there are both Canvas resources and other technological resources that can help with this. The peer review tool in Canvas might be able to use for something along this with a little bit of tweaking, I think. And then there are some other tools which I haven't used any of them, but they do exist. And so for that technological session, I'll do some research on those and talk about them. Okay, does anybody have any questions about this one? It's much more obvious how it saves time by just reducing the number of actual graded assignments.
I think one thing that stands out for me is that I feel like I still haven't stumbled upon a really good peer grading tool yet. So the
Mhm.
one that we have in Canvas really is not very robust, and students don't get awarded for what they actually collaborate to the system. So I'm curious, if anybody has stumbled across a really great peer grading platform or resource that they're interested in sharing, by all means, feel free to plug it into the chat window, because I would love to learn more about some of the different technologies around that.
Okay, so another one that's not quite as obvious, that it would streamline faculty members' grading, but is actually very good for students, is adding formative assessments. So formative assessments are ongoing evaluations that are used during the course to monitor student understanding, provide feedback to them, and then potentially guide future instruction. So a faculty member can, if a formative assessment doesn't go well, nobody did very well on it, they can tell at that point that there might be something wrong with that part of their instruction, and it can make some adjustments so it doesn't happen in the future. So whereas summative assessments evaluate learning at the end of a lesson, a unit, the end of the course, things like final exams, term papers, those kinds of things. And so formative assessments ideally are low stakes, and they're designed to improve learning as the learning is happening. Again, instead of waiting until the end to do that. The way that formative assessments actually help faculty members is it allows them, they create the smaller assessments, and they can focus on just the important aspects of the course. So then they know that when students go on to the bigger assessments, they're going to be better prepared. And so if they're putting these kind of formative assessments in there, then at the end for like the larger assessments, they don't necessarily have to put everything in there. So those final assessments can be smaller and easier to grade as well. So a lot of those formative assessments can be put in there as low stakes quizzes. So Canvas allows you to do that. They can be auto graded. There might be some other tools that'll do that, but I think Canvas can do that pretty well. And there might be some other ways that you could do that in class through different technologies. And, I can research some of those and talk about those in the other technology version of this session. So, and a lot of that kind of stuff, these low stakes formative quizzes are really easy to automate, and it helps students prepare more for the summative assessments.
We have a question in the chat window here.
Huh.
Winter asks us, can you provide some specific examples of formative assessments that instructors have used in the past?
So you might have like a class that is built on, that kind of builds on itself. So they have to learn the stuff in lesson 1 to be able to apply that to lesson 2. And it just keeps kind of building and building and building as it goes on throughout the class. So where you can ask those kind of formative kind of things is if there's like something that's super important that could kind of just throw the entire education experience for the student in the class. If they don't get that one particular thing, then they're not going to do well in the class overall. And so what you can do is try to identify those like kind of key concepts and put a formative assessment about that. It works very well in something like a programming class. So for instance, if students don't understand things like syntax and like that kind of stuff in a programming class, then they're not going to have a very easy time trying to get through the rest of the class. So you could put a formative assessment in there, make sure they really understand that before they go on into other more kind of complicated types of questions and activities. So we do have resources that can help faculty members do this sort of thing. And generally, if you talk to a faculty member and you ask them, what is the most important thing that students need to learn early on in this class that could impact something further down in the class, they're most likely going to know that. And so that's a good place to kind of identify those things is when you're meeting with a faculty member early on. And there's all different ways you can do formative assessment. I just picked the low stakes quizzes because they're automatically graded and they're quick, and you can do a lot of them very quickly. So that's why that's in there. All right. So the last one is diversified grading methods. And so this one is a little kind of out there. And so some faculty members might not feel super comfortable doing something like this. But it is a valuable way that they can actually save themselves a lot of time. If the types of assignments that they're giving their students actually fits well with these two options. So in addition to traditional grading methods, these options will assist with streamlining grading. So first one is spot checking long assignments. So instead of everything in a long assignment, just focus on grading key portions of the assignment where students demonstrate their understanding of major concepts. And again, back to rubrics, if you add rubrics for those portions, it will reduce that grading even further. For the staggering deadlines option, so this one, if you have an assignment that's flexible, like you want your students to write something throughout the semester, and maybe your class is on a bunch of different topics and everybody doesn't have to do every single one of them. So because they can, if you stagger those deadlines and you give students access to what's being submitted, then students can kind of learn from each other with what they're posting. And then you grade what was posted, and then the next week, then a different group of students post something. And then the next week, a different group of students post something. And so there are a bunch of different ways that this can be done. In Canvas, you'd probably have to go into the assignments area and do some set up some groups in there. So you would put all of those assignments in together and say, use the highest score, for instance. So assessment groups. And so, so even though you don't want the students to panic because their grade in the grade book looks terrible because it looks like they didn't turn in 10 assignments. So Canvas will allow you to actually do something like that to make it work for the students, and it will work for you because if you have a really large class, but you do want them to have provide a writing sample kind of thing, you can only grade 1/10 or 1/12 of the class each week. So you're continually grading, but you're grading a whole lot less. So I know those two are like a little bit kind of out there, but we have used both of them in a couple of different classes. So the staggering deadlines one was used in one of my classes, and it worked very well because the entire course was just a bunch of different topics related to climate change. And so the faculty member just split the students into a bunch of different groups, and then he just had to grade. He was grading every week, but he only had to grade a certain number of students instead of all of the students, which really saved him a lot of time. And then his class went up. They added 200 seats to his class, and so we took that assignment and used Yellow Dig to do it a different way. And so the students are still getting that experience writing, but it's just being graded in a different way. And so that is the whole staggering deadlines option. Okay, any questions about that?
I think we're good. April, go ahead.
Okay, well, that is all I had. And so I think I kept it under half an hour. And but I am happy to answer any questions, hear your thoughts about what was presented, or some ideas even. And I know that all of those aren't every single way that you might be able to help a faculty member streamline a course. But I wanted to provide like a variety of options, except the whole rubric thing I did kind of focus on that a lot because they're so useful.
I think this was a really great introduction to a lot of different tools and strategies that people could use in order to streamline their courses and the teaching and learning experience. And we'll take
Um,
just a moment here to thank our guest speaker for today, April Millay. Again, if you are interested in contacting her, here's her contact information, the AZS2@psu.edu. And she's just a great member of our team here at the Dutton Institute, very knowledgeable. And she always has great suggestions for the work that we're trying to engage in when working with faculty. So I would encourage anybody else who's interested in learning more about different types of instructional strategies that you can leverage to help support faculty members to contact her. And with that in mind, if you're going to go ahead and move to the next slide, thank you. If you would like to schedule a consultation with the Dutton Institute or one of the learning designers here at Dutton, feel free to contact our Director of Learning Design, Stevie Rocco. And you can see her contact information is also here on this last slide. And thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed today's session. Thanks a lot. Take care.